Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. John Wooden.
So why do people fall out of the elite social classes? This is the question I'm going to address in this presentation that I share with you. I'm going to show you a speech I did at one of my meetups. It was the one I did live at my office for Spearhead in Beverly Hills, where I discuss what causes downward social class mobility. And it's usually not weird left tail events or macroeconomic shocks. It's more really a product of the individual's life choices and planning or lack thereof that causes downward social mobility. In America, we tend to be proud of our country's social mobility, that people can move up from the bottom. But the same forces that allow people from move up to the bottom for the top often has the reverse effect that allows people from the elites to, within a few generations or even sometimes within the same generation, drop down several social classes. And I'm going to break down in this video why that's the case. And before I get to the main presentation, I'd just like to have a disclaimer that nothing in this presentation is investment advice. Spearhead Advisors is not an estate planner or a tax planner. Please do your own due diligence and research or contact an advisor if you need help with investment matters. And if you have specific questions about me in terms of specific investments or financial planning or anything involving that, feel free to reach out to me directly, as I'm not going to answer those type of questions in the comments. And without further ado, let's get started with my thoughts on downward social mobility. Thank you guys all for coming. Murphy had a great speech about deficit, and I'm going to do something a little more esoteric and kind of in line with the whole theme of the channel. And we're in Beverly Hills, which is kind of the glamorous city of new money and the promise of class mobility. However, freedom to move up also comes with the risk of sliding down the social class. And I'm going to really be talking about what are the main causes of social class downward mobility in the United States, particularly. I'm going to break this down on a level by level basis. Most downward mobility isn't really caused by recession, bad luck, or tax policy that puts people in poverty. I mean, there are medical emergencies that do cause issues like that, but for the most part, it's really caused by lack of planning, for lack of a return, and lack of financial education. Like, if you're not budgeting, that's a choice. If there's no estate plan, that's a bet. As John Wooden really essentially said, is failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And that's kind of a common theme. Let's let this go on a class by class breakdown of what causes downward class mobility. So the precariat is the first class that actually has room to go down. Because if you're at the dependent class, you're at the bottom, really. And the main thing that causes them to move down is a financial shock of some sort. And life happens. So there always is some sort of financial shock there. And usually it's no savings, no insurance, and therefore it results in no room for error. So if you lose your job, you rent high, trip to the U, basically it's game over. And the problem is irresponsibility, because it's very hard to be responsible when you have no room to be flexible. It's just really their budget to begin with didn't really have any buffers to really impact any sort of downside catastrophe of any kind. The middle class, their main down source is death by over optimism. Like, this group really just has enough the income, and credit card companies give them just enough rope to hang themselves. But due to social pressure, it's often the chance that people will do that. Example would be like car loans, taking on debt for a wedding, first house with 5% or less down on their down payment. And oftentimes, like having children before getting married or being financially ready to. It's not really a judgment call. It's kind of just math at that point. It's over leveraging yourself and betting on your income going up faster than probably what is realistic. In terms of the professional class, it's also an overconfident issue, just at a bigger degree. Like here, this is the level where you're making like $400K a year, you own a nice home, and you have your 529s filled for, you don't really have much diversification. Most of your net worth is probably in your house or in your company's RSUs or like some liquid IRA that you can't really tap or private equity deal. So basically, there's some major risks that kind of impact these people that are a little different. One is technological obsolescence. I've talked a lot about AI, and AI is going to disrupt a lot of professions, and it's disproportionately affecting some more of the white collar profession. And a lot of these skills that people have been built over their careers, particularly among like the higher educated people, are going to be heavily commoditized by LLMs and other forms of AI. And it's not going to be fired day one when ChatGPT comes out. It'll be more like gradually companies say, hey, wait, maybe we can replace more of Nick's job with this piece of AI. And then over like 3, 4, 5 years, your value is depreciated by 25%, but your salary is still the same. When layoffs come the next recession, you're the first to get cut. And by then you might be too old or unwilling to retrain, and where your skills are just so far departed from what the market demands, you're in a position now that you've basically been made technologically obsolete. It's a slow erosion more than just a sudden like drop. And the second is overconcentrated debt. A lot of, again, upwardly mobile corporate professionals have 40% of their net worth concentrated in their employer's stock. Another 30% might be in a private equity type investment that you've done, or in a piece of real estate or stuff or something like that. A lot of people think they're diversified because maybe like their 401k, which is 5% of their net worth, is across in other investments, but they're really not. And when the cycle turns, everything kind of gets correlated. And then for the very rich, really the death of them is mainly due to family issues and complexity and lack of dealing with complexity. The biggest one is estate planning. I know just from my personal life and my professional life, how many family fortunes have been just destroyed by siblings who hate each other and litigate each other to death? Like you have somebody like a wealthy patriarch or matriarch who started a business or owns like a family estate or a farm or something like that. And they don't really write an estate plan at all, or they write one assuming that the siblings like each other enough that when the stakes are high, they will be fair to each other. And that's not how the real world works. And a lot of people at that transition basically blow the estate just fighting over the scraps. And it's surprisingly very common. Sometimes only a lot of form of trust. The other one is the product of blended families. A lot of high net worth, like the very wealthy have the highest divorce rates in our society generally. Like the billionaire class is a 50% divorce rate versus about 39% for the general population. And that, along with a lot of blended families and larger family sizes, and the fortunes come down to split, there's a lot of competing factions fighting with each other, and there's just more to be split around. And it often just ends in an ugly court date. The other thing that happens is long-term care. Ever since the 2008 crisis, it's been very hard to get reasonably affordable long-term care insurance. And the result of that is if you live now till like 90 or 95, like if you're in the top 10% of income earners in America, your lifespan is 89 years old, male or female. If you are in the top 1%, your life expectancy is well over 90 years old. Yet a lot of people's cognitive decline starts maybe 8 to 10 years earlier than that. And if you're paying $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month or more in long-term care, and a lot of these places are, a multi-million-dollar fortune can be eroded in a decade just on long-term care costs. And a lot of people don't think about that. It may not bankrupt you, but it takes a real big hit. But if I want to wrap it up, I'm just going to go to the top 10 causes of downward mobility. Then I'm going to leave us up to Q&A. First one is no emergency buffer. Regardless of income, failing to save 3 to 6 months of liquidity makes any shock a destabilizing event. Having kids before you're married, or just when you have financial stability, that increases your household costs without the income or the planning to really prepare for that. Technological obsolescence, AI and other technologies disrupting mid-career professionals who've invested too much in a skill set and don't have time to replace it. Lifestyle inflation without net worth growth. This is more common among the middle class. A lot of people try to spend up to a certain level, particularly those who grew up in the boom 90s. Like I mentioned in the video, they were used to a certain life and it's not there, but their income doesn't match. I call it it's called the Duesenberry effect, which I might make a video on in the future, but it's the idea that people will do anything to maintain a certain lifestyle, even if it results in their financial ruin. The sixth one is divorce and remarriage. Divorce is probably the single biggest life event that breaks a family in terms of net worth. It's 50% plus legal fees right off the bat. And that doesn't even count other second order effects in terms of psychological damage to previous succeeding generations. Lack of estate planning and failing to model an exit, especially small business owners who own like a family-owned concentrated company that's not going to go public. As many as 70% of these companies fail to have any sort of exit, or they just shut down operations without getting anything for it. And overall, the goal is not just to get rid, but it's to maintain it and have a plan so it passes down to the generation. And at Spearhead, for example, what we do is you're not going to find a wealth manager who's going to get you to that level. It's our job more to keep you there. And with that, I'm going to take Q&A. Any questions?